when you reject parts of yourself and you don't give yourself the space to be who you actually are, that can be super harmful.
Hello and welcome back to the Bianca Taylor podcast. Today's guest is somebody who is so dear to my heart, not just because of the work that she does, but because of how powerful she is. She's one of my really good friends, and she is the founder of Owaken Breathwork and Intuitive Impact. She helps people heal through breathwork. It is so amazing, and she really inspires me to just come out of the spiritual closet, as I've said, and really embrace all of the intuitive and spiritual powers that we have within ourselves. So I'm super excited for you guys to meet Helle Weston.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy to catch you while you're in town for once, because
You just got it.
I knew my intuition was like, I need to reach out to her before she's not in LA anymore, because you're constantly traveling for your work, right?
Constantly on the go. I was speaking to someone yesterday and they're like, every time I see you, you're packing up to go somewhere else. It's like we just catch each other. So I'm really glad that we got to sit down and have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. So why don't we just start with letting people know a little bit about yourself and how you got into breathwork and what that was like discovering it, because I'm sure people listening to this don't really understand what breathwork is or the power that it has.
Okay, so I found breathwork when I was about probably 8 years deep into spiritual seeking, personal development, all the things. You know, I was going to seminars, workshops, reading all of the self-help books, and I was already working full-time as a coach. So at that point in my life, I honestly thought I knew what was available in the space of helping people and creating transformation. Someone had recommended to me that I try breathwork, and I made the assumption that it was about improving my meditation practice and maybe breathing better for my physical health. I could recognize the value in that alone. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll try it someday. Noted. Little did I know that it would completely change my life and take my personal growth to a completely different level. So I first tried breathwork in Bali. The type of breathwork that I tried at that time was transformational breathing. So some people might know of holotropic breathwork, transformational breathing, or rebirthing breathwork. They're the closest lineages to what I now share, which is Awaken breathwork. And there are some differences in it, which we can talk about more. But what happened in that first experience was within about 10 to 15 minutes of breathing, I felt like I shot out of my body. And all of a sudden, I was able to see my entire life from a completely different perspective. And the closest thing that I could describe it as is it's as if I became God. And I could see me as a personality from this very, very vast, loving position. And I was able to review over my entire life as if time was just, you know, flipping pages of a book. And simultaneously, as I was experiencing this expanded state, I was also able to feel me and it was almost like a conversation where I was going from this perspective back to me, this perspective and back to me. And I began to cry and feel so much compassion as I realized that I had still been living in such a disconnected state from my spiritual nature. And even though I was doing all of this inner work and I had become really good at acting positive, there was actually so much pain still there. And I had just become really good at hiding it and kind of band-aiding over the top of it with this positivity. So the breath work gave me an opportunity to see what was really there through a very loving, compassionate, but ruthlessly honest perspective. I mean, if you imagine you pass away and you're having a life review with God, source, the universe, whatever we want to call it, everything's going to come up, right? You're going to get exposed to all of it like a big mirror. So I had that. And after an hour of the breath work, I had cried. I felt my body releasing so many different emotions and all of this energy buzzing and vibrating in my entire system. My hands were like this.
Yeah.
I was going through all of this stuff, which I would love to talk to you about more, around feeling like something was wrong with me, like I was the odd one out, like nobody understood me. And oh my gosh, look at me. Everyone's going to be thinking I'm so weird. And it's all so symbolic, you know, the internal narrative around this microcosmic experience. 1 hour in the breathwork space represents so much of how I was thinking and operating in my life. So after that, I got up from the breathwork session, and my partner Lucas, who you're friends with too, he was in the space with me, and he looked at me and he was like, was that? And we both just knew that we'd discovered something really important and special. And so the two of us went on a journey of studying, and then we built our company, Owaken Breathwork. And now, we work with people all around the world sharing it. And our aim is to normalize spirituality and give people tools where you don't actually need to believe in anything in particular. Like you can be a complete atheist to do breath work. You could be religious. Anyone can connect through the breath to their own direct experience of truth. And that's why I love it so much, because there were different modalities that I was working with, healing modalities, energy medicine, and so on. And a continual barrier that would come up is people's belief systems and conditioning, right? Like, oh, that's not a part of what I believe, and therefore I can't experience that, or I don't believe that that's available to me. Everyone can breathe.
Yeah.
Everyone can feel what's happening. Everyone can experience the power of the emotions that get released in a 1 hour session. So I love it.
That's so amazing. And I also think it's so cool that you and Lucas had that first experience together, and then you guys went on to do this work together. I can relate because my partner Nima and I both, met being passionate about veganism, and that became our work. So how has that been in exploring, sharing breath work with people, with your partner, and building a business together? How has that impacted the work?
It's honestly been really hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier now. I feel like we've got the hang of it. In the beginning, like the first 2 to 3 years of being in business together, it was super challenging on our relationship because it brought in a completely different dynamic. I'm sure you felt this as well, where when you go into work mode, we step into more of that masculine energy or mindset. We're about getting things done and strategy and having to debate on which ideas we should take action on and not. We did start to butt heads a little bit. And a big lesson for me has been in understanding how I can remain in my feminine energy in our relationship. And I know that this is something, again, like you're so passionate about, and I love it. Maintain polarity. That's really important for us. We've been together for nearly 15 years now. So maintaining my feminine energy in the relationship and him feeling a sense of empowerment as a masculine being is helpful for both of us. It's beneficial to our happiness. And I know that we each have areas where we lead. And so a big part of that for us has been honoring roles and going, okay, this is your superpower. This is your strength. Let's double down on you doing that, and I'll do this. And we respect and have that space for each other. Whereas before it was just like everything was in a pot. We were all trying to do everything at once. And then sometimes like I would take on way too much responsibility and be like, help you, you're not doing enough, or he'd do that as well. And that was stressful. So we're doing a lot better now. And the biggest superpower I think that we have as a couple in our business is that the work that we teach is our primary strategy in growing the company. Like we do inner work to grow. We lead by intuition. We are so in flow, and we are both on the same page with that. So it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I love that. And that makes a lot of sense to me as well, to let your intuition guide you. And it sounds like that's what you've been doing from the start, even when you first heard about breathwork and you decided to, okay, try it. And then you had this amazing transformational experience. And then you felt like, I need to do more of this. This is part of my work here. And as you began to lean into that, I'm sure you started to discover more of your spirituality as well. So how has that journey been, your own personal journey with breathwork? And because you do facilitate these containers for people to heal and have transformation, and you've been doing it for so long. So I wonder if somebody can experience what you shared in one session, I wonder what years of it feels like.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, big, juicy topic.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest gift that breathwork as a practice has given me is honesty with myself. I don't go into every session and feel like I connect with God. That definitely is not the case. I have many sessions where I feel like I'm breathing and I'm in my body and I'm experiencing different sensations, or I've had a conversation a week ago or a month ago or even 10 years ago, and it's coming into my awareness and I'm realizing how much I'm still holding on to it. And in that space, I have the opportunity to breathe through it and let it go at a somatic level. And I think this is the part that so many people are missing with personal growth.
Yes, I agree.
The body, right? Not realizing that the body is holding on to the emotions and the energy and these thought forms. And especially if we experience trauma or very stressful, overwhelming experiences, whether it be a breakup or even the breakdown of a friendship, or at school, a teacher saying something that's very disempowering, a parent that speaks to you in a type of way, or having your parents split up. There are countless things that can leave a mark on a person. And in these experiences, what can happen is we don't have the space to fully process everything that we're feeling. I'm sure everyone who's listening can relate to this, where you're experiencing a lot of emotion like a flood. And in that experience of the flood, you've been taught to be nice, to hold it together, to not be dramatic, don't be angry, be strong, don't be selfish, don't take up too much attention. There's so many different ways that we have been conditioned to believe that going through the flood of emotion right to completion is not a good idea. And so we have different coping strategies to do that. For some people, it's distraction through anything from scrolling on your phone to over-exercising, eating, pornography, sex, dating, games. It could be anything. Even working, studying. There can be ones that seem on the surface to be positive that are actually a form of escape from being with discomfort. So in that decision point, when we go, okay, this flood of emotion is here and I don't want to feel it, and we go to distractions, or we learn to just stuff it way down and disassociate from it, like it's not happening, denial, the body holds that energy. And this can lead to things like chronic pain, digestive issues, even disease. People have no idea of the cost that holding on to these emotions is having. And so what we find in the breathwork space is that no matter how long it's been, you can give yourself the opportunity to stimulate these parts of your brain, to access those memories and create a physiological shift, which will affect not only your body, but your beliefs, your perception, and your state of well-being in your life. It's massive and just wild to see the effects of it.
Yeah, that's huge. And from my own personal experience, I experienced that with you, doing breathwork with you. We've done two sessions together. The first one we did with Lucas and Nimai was there. And then we did another one where you came to my house when I was living by myself, and we just did it alone. And in that, this childhood memory that was seemingly random to me, but it left such a mark on me. It came up and I realized, well, that's related to abandonment issues. And I'm able to identify it better so much now, just from that. What we were breathing for an hour or you know, and that's so impactful to be able to access that. And can you share a little bit more about what you've seen in working with different people and these somatic experiences? Because I agree with you that a lot of people don't realize how important the somatic work is. A lot of people think that talk therapy and having a coach, that is great, that is helpful.
It is important.
Yeah.
It's not the only
It's
thing.
not. Yeah, it's not. So can you share a little bit more about how that works and what you've seen with people that you've been working with?
Yeah. Okay, so to keep it simple and clear for everyone, I think it's helpful to talk about this idea of safety.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone has their own baseline gauge on feeling safe in life and what that looks like, what that feels like, what needs to be happening in the environment and within the self in order to feel safe. So when we go through certain situations in life that are traumatizing or stressful or overwhelming in any way, like it's too much, too soon, too fast, what can happen is the nervous system registers this overwhelming stress, and these parts of our brain, like it's called the amygdala, starts to fire the stress response. Then you've got your limbic brain, which registers the past, the present, and the future as happening simultaneously. Okay, so what then happens is you go through something, let's say at age 5. You don't get the opportunity to feel your feelings. Let's say your parent tells you to shut up and get over it. And so the body goes into a state of freeze, and it's a functional form where the emotions and the energy of that experience are still stuck in the body, and the person goes on with their life, but it's compromising that person's functioning. The limbic brain is processing all life experiences now with this filter, trying to protect the self from that occurring again.
Yeah.
Or recreating an experience to create closure and completion on that trauma. So something that you hear all the time, right? In spirituality, personal growth is, why do I keep manifesting the same people into my life? We will be drawn to the same types of people again and again if the subconscious mind is seeking to close a loop and heal trauma. And so that's why it's really helpful to have, talk therapy, but also somatic therapy so that you can get into the body and release that charge and close out those loops so that you're no longer seeking to heal it through relationship, because that can be super toxic, right? Like I've done it myself with Lucas in our relationship, and I've seen it with dozens and dozens of clients where we just unfairly overlay the past onto the now. And so say with that 5-year-old where they've been told to shut up and they haven't had an opportunity to feel, let's say, angry and upset, fast forward into adult life and they've got a relationship, let's say a boyfriend, and the person is angry. And their boyfriend is like, why are you being so intense? Why are you being angry? And all of a sudden the system, without even consciously realizing it, is like, this reminds me of all of the times where my mum used to tell me to shut up when I was angry. And I don't know what to do with this. And so we go into that shutdown. And then we become a filtered version of ourselves. Like, no wonder we don't feel free. Again, why I love you so much and the way you show up in the world, because you liberate yourself and you give other women and, you know, all beings permission to do the same, to unfilter and to realize that the parts of ourselves that we've judged as too much, too intense, not lovable, are available to be loved as well. And it's up to us to discern that and choose a new narrative and release the energy associated with that in the body.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And like you said, I experienced that so much. Is why I'm so passionate about talking about self-expression, because I suppressed so much of myself for so long. And when I started to express myself in different ways, I found so much healing in it. And when other people reach out to me online and say, you inspired me to express myself, to do more of this, to be more authentic to myself, and it's healing, I think that's just the best thing ever.
And that's the powerful thing, right? It can be that we go into a deep therapeutic experience like breathwork or sitting with plant medicine or getting into deep hypnosis therapy work. Or it can also come through in an instantaneous moment where you see someone who embodies a different possibility and you just decide, whoa, okay, I'm ready for a different way. And the energy can discharge that way too.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to go back to when you were talking about breathwork and you said it's something that's available for everybody because it's non-dogmatic. You don't have to be spiritual or religious. You could be an atheist. It's for everybody because everybody can tap into their breath, and we all have trauma that we can benefit healing from. So it's available for everybody. And with that, I know that people like you and I have incorporated it on our spiritual journey, and you have all of these other spiritual gifts as well. And so I wonder what it's like for you to, or what it's been like for you to discover these other gifts you have, if you're comfortable sharing them, and how you incorporate it into your work of helping people heal.
Yeah, embracing spiritual gifts is not easy if you're sensitive to the perception of others, especially at this time on the planet, I think, with so much skepticism and judgment and also general disconnection from spirit. You know, you look at different cultures that are out of the Western world. You go to the jungles. Spirituality is normal. It's a given. And yet in this Western world, we're taught or conditioned to dismiss it, to judge it, to reject it, or to favor one particular doctrine. So for me, I was a highly sensitive child, and since I was really little, like as early as I can remember, I was having different metaphysical experiences, paranormal experiences, having visions. I remember since really, really young that my nighttime mind would be extremely active. Like I would go on journeys into different realms, and that was always the case. So as I got older, I wanted to continue exploring, and my peers throughout school, you know, I got teased a lot. And so more and more, as I was saying before, right, with trauma, you know, you have these moments and you're like, this isn't safe. It's not safe for me to share because when I share, I look silly or I might lose friends, I might lose love. And so that happened for me, and I began to shut down and become this filtered vanilla version of myself. But inside, she was still there.
She was super witchy inside.
Yeah. And so I have gone through the shadow journey, I suppose, of rejecting my spiritual gifts. And that is, it made me sick. And so I think it's very important for any sensitive soul to know that when you reject parts of yourself and you don't give yourself the space to be who you actually are, that can be super harmful. It can cause depression, anxiety, and the cascade effect of that. It just goes on and on. So that led me to have chronic fatigue, digestive issues. I remember having rashes all over my body. Like I couldn't even have a shower without feeling like my body was on fire. And what helped me was giving myself permission to step away from the conditioned box that I thought I needed to fit into and be more and more me. And then my nervous system started to relax. So this is the mind-body connection, right? When I'm filtering myself, I'm living in an anxious state. I'm being hypervigilant and trying to survive by being in control. And there's all of this inflammation that comes with that. And so as I relaxed into like, okay, I can be me, I can find my people, then my happiness increased and I just truly have felt more free. And then being able to serve others is such a game changer. I believe like a meaningful life is about service. And if I'm not living true to who I am and what I believe, then I'm serving my ego. And that's not what I want to be aligned in service to. I want to be in service to my heart, to my soul, and to all of the other people who I know struggle and feel alone. And like this world isn't a kind, accommodating place for a sensitive soul who's curious about the truth of the universe and beyond. So I think one thing that can help for anybody who may be struggling with owning your spirituality is getting curious about the voice in your head that is telling you that's not okay and where that comes from. Because for me, I could identify quite clearly who that voice was and that authority figure in my life, which, to be honest, is mostly my father. And me censoring myself was trying to be lovable for him, to keep my little inner child safe and be like, Daddy loves and approves of me. But in the process of doing that, I was abandoning myself. So when I started asking that question around whose voice that is that really me? Is that my truth, or is that someone else's voice? Then I could distinguish, okay, that's where it's coming from. And if that voice wasn't there, like if we just play for a moment, play a game and imagine that voice wasn't there, would I show up differently? And the answer for me is yes. And so I had to liberate myself from the inside out to just be real.
Yeah. And that's such great advice to begin to identify where you are shaming yourself. And when we talked about self-expression before, you know, I said expressing your truth. And for me, that's been being proud of my sexuality, of loving my body, being confident. And now my next chapter is me not shaming my spirituality, because it is a huge part of my life. And my friends who know me in real life know I'm this like huge witch, but when I show up online, I have hidden a lot of it because of my own fear around that. And just like you said, when you suppress parts of yourself, your body, your nervous system is turned on and you can't fully relax. And so I'm in that process. So that's why I love seeing people like you own it and give tips on how to identify it, because I know there are so many men and women who also have gifts and are ignoring them and suppressing them and not allowing themselves to fully feel into the magic that they have and are born with and have been cultivating.
Yeah. The interesting thing is too, I've found as I've continued diving deeper into my spirituality, sometimes the deeper you go, the more questions you have. And because so many of us have been conditioned to value certainty and science that can prove a repeatable phenomena, when a process of inquiry opens up more and more and more questions, which from my perspective is like the flowering nature of God, is it's just endless expression. And so naturally there's going to be so many facets and nuances that we could observe and explore and expand upon more and more and more, right? And so that can be something that I think that the mind really grapples with. People that I support, work with in my programs and work with privately, this seems to come up again and again for them. Like, how can I prove it? I'm not sure. The doubt that comes in when you're a naturally curious, questioning person, and you can come to you can have an experience or come to a realization or insight, but then that can open up a box of a whole, Pandora's box of many, many more questions. And so there isn't necessarily a concrete place to land on. Like, let's say if you have a book with all of these rules and teachings of a religion, you've got your rules, you've got your certainty, these are the laws of life, and your mind can be at peace and rest. And for some, their spiritual path isn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, whoa, okay, realization after realization. And so what I like to share with people is you know the truth by the way it feels.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be moments in your spiritual path where you touch truth and it opens you up to wonder, to the miraculous, and you know in such a visceral way that it's real. And we need to hang on to those moments and remember them and build an archive of them because they become very important in building faith.
Mm-hmm.
And that faith is like the backbone to live a spiritually courageous life.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're familiar with the work of Abraham Hicks, and they refer to your feelings as your emotional guidance system. So whenever I start to have feelings that come up that feel really good or really bad, or they just start to come up and I can feel a little confused and I want to resist them, I try to remind myself that this is my emotional guidance system, that we have feelings because they are meant to guide us. And by doing that, I've continued to strengthen my intuition, which allows me to feel more confident in my gifts and utilizing them and sharing them as well. It's just like anything. It's also a skill. So the more that you do it, the more confidence you gain in it. And the more confidence you gain in it, the easier it feels and the more you release that shame. So it's kind of this thing where you have to overcome the shame, you have to just do it and gain the confidence, even though that it's like that initial like overcoming the shame in that moment is the scary part.
Yeah. And being kind to yourself in the process and remembering that you are not alone. I think that's where a spiritual practice is so comforting and can give us so much strength if we rely on it rather than doing everything alone. Like in my moments of greatest vulnerability, my mind can help me if I'm coaching myself and focusing on, empowering thoughts. But the deepest support that I receive is when I connect with source, with spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that I am not alone in this and there is an intelligence that's watching over me. Like I personally believe that we live in a kind and loving universe and that, there is free will and opportunity to create and to do things that are maybe judged as bad, wrong, not good, yada, 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 which is a whole other conversation. But that belief that I live in a loving, kind universe allows me to just come back again and again to my practice and find that place of deep truth inside to go forward into whatever my guidance is telling me to do, be, express in a more surrendered way. Knowing that I don't need to understand all of it. I don't need to know everything in order to charge on.
Yeah.
And you need to practice that. Like it's not going to be easy for someone who is very unfamiliar with taking risks and living a guided life. But the more that you do it, the more clear it becomes that it works. So for anybody who is wanting evidence, that kind of more scientific evidence-based approach, try it. Like build a practice, meditate, do breath work, ask the question that we ask in our daily practice, which is, what does my inner guidance want me to know right now? And if you're asking that every day for 30 days, you're going to get some suggestions, some insights, some feelings, and then you get to practice actioning them and watch what happens. See if it works. It's got me this far. I know it's got you this far. And I work with a lot of different successful people now. And I can tell you that behind the scenes, they're all living, following that guidance, according to that guidance system. And it allows you to fast track your life and do things that seem illogical and unreasonable and like a quantum leap. And that's because it is. You're not working with the limits of what your mind can fathom at that point.
Yeah, you're going beyond the 2D and or the 3D, I suppose, and it starts to feel it just feels a little scary because it's not what we're taught, and it's not what is necessarily like physically tangible. And so that can seem, that's when the doubt starts coming up, because like you said, so many of us, we grow up and we're taught that you need to have evidence, science backing this. And so then you just think, okay, well, I'm not going to believe in that. And another piece about it too is something that I've come to realize on my journey is that a lot of my shame around my own spiritual gifts and my own spiritual path comes from patriarchal thinking and the shaming of indigenous cultures, because that's where the practices have been taught from. And when you travel to Colombia and you go and you see how shamans work, they're revered people. It's not shameful at all. It's amazing. And so that's been something that I've realized too about my own connection to shame as well. So how does that, have you ever, had any of those kinds of realizations as well about like not just your shame in relation to your own personal life experiences, but in relation to the, patriarchal norms and cultural norms to shame other cultures?
Yeah. That's such a big deal that needs to be discussed more and near and dear to my heart. I will never forget this moment. I lived in Bali for a few years, and I remember one day I was sitting with a Balinese man, and he was telling me that in Bali, one of the traditions that they have is, they watch the children and they're aware of how kids are developing, and that includes their connection to spirit and to the gods, the different deities that they connect in with. And he explained that in their tradition, if a child is having a lot of dream time activity, they're having premonitions, visions, they're connecting with different dimensions of reality or different beings, let's say, the parents and the families, the community as a whole, will support those children and bring them into mentoring. So let's say, for example, a little girl who is very sensitive, having trippy dreams, connecting with different spirits, telling her parents, like, I'm seeing these different beings and they have messages. That little girl, which could have been you or I, goes into being apprenticed and guided and supported to become a priestess.
Wow.
And when I heard that, I was like, wow, yeah, damn, we're really missing that support here. And imagine if we could honor the power of intuition more in Western society, and if families and cultures, if communities knew how to foster those gifts to support the up and coming healers of the tribe, the community, which is exactly what they are. And you look in different tribes in the jungles as well, they do the same thing. The shamans are raised up from very young, and they're put through these different initiations to help them. They already have the gifts, the opening there, the sensitivity, and then there's processes that need to be brought into those children's lives to support that, to be developed further. I'm like, we have work to do, major work to do. Yeah,
it's so amazing, and in the contrast of the cultures too. And I'm sure that anybody listening this who feels, whether they feel confident in their gifts or they feel questioning of their gifts, that probably hits home. Like when you said, like, oh, a little girl who sees beings and communicates with spirits and tries to tell her parents. I mean, imagine how different that reality could have been to have been assured and validated and nurtured and allowed those gifts to only strengthen. It would have been such a crazy different life experience, rather than the shame of pushing it down and telling yourself that you're crazy, or that it's not real, or that it's just woo-woo BS, or, all of the different kind of like terms that we use to put it down.
Yeah. And in the world, we've got so many different types of human beings with different gifts and interests and skills. Healers, oracles, witches, medicine people. We are one type of being. And this isn't the goal or the nature of everyone. And it's not to say that anyone can't access intuition, because I believe anybody can and does already. Like, we just don't know it.
Yep.
But there are specific people on the planet who are more interested, excited, alive in that space of expression, and then more open to it. And so I feel like I am now here as a messenger for those people in the modern world to give them a way to explore that's really free of the excess fluff. It's like cutting off, the fat and just bringing it as close as I can to the essence of what we're trying to activate and going, okay, try this, try it for yourself, see what you find. And in that place, then you get to activate in your own unique way rather than us trying to become cookie cutter healers or activists or whatever it is that we want to be. And I think, you and I have known each other as you've been in this process of coming out of the spiritual closet.
Yeah.
And I think it's super important to give yourself permission to do it on your own terms, because when we see a certain type of spirituality and it's not quite us, it can get really heady and confusing. Like, okay, I feel spiritual. I feel like I want to help people, but everyone that I look at doesn't really feel like how I want to do it. Yeah. So maybe I can't. Maybe I've just got to be over here and that's hidden. It's like my little secret that I share with my witchy friends. And no, you can do it completely your way.
Yes. Yes, I fully agree with that, because that is my experience has been over the past few years, recognizing that the way in which I go down my spiritual path and cultivate my gifts and figure out how I want to share them with other people is completely my own. It doesn't need to look like other people. It doesn't need to be on the same scale of other people. And it's such a tender and vulnerable, relationship that I have with myself to nurture. And there's no rush for anybody who's on that journey of their own healing, because, my healing journey is what brought me to my spiritual journey. And that's I'm still healing from a lot of things from my past. And as I continue to heal through different things like breathwork or therapy and coaching and medicine, I allow myself to feel more at home in my body, and then I can nurture the gifts a little bit more. So there's no rush to the journey.
Yeah. You know what excites me as well so much is with social media and the momentum that we're currently in, with people around the world who are in their own homes with their little device, who have now a voice and a platform. I feel like there is a power handover that's happening, where before it was the patriarchy. And I guess I'm saying what you talk about already in a different way, that before we revered the books, the credibility, the systems, these ideas that were laid out to us in this structured way of how you should be as a proper citizen of the Western world, whatever. And now the mic has been taken by the people who now have their own voice. And I think this is where the rising up of artists comes in, and artists who are expressing from a very right brain place, which to me is a form of channeling, channeling something that's never been created, something divine, something that is genius, to me is an act of God, as a spiritual expression. And so with that, I feel like future generations are going to be experiencing life in a whole new way, with a whole new set of values and aspirations and things to look up to being. So a lot of the things that we've been raised in to be proper are kind of outdated and are becoming more and more archaic, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the beauties of social media, is allowing us to have power in our own voices and be exposed to so many different people and messages. And that allows for so much more growth in different ways, because when I was, before social media was a thing when I was a kid. I mean, I've had my spiritual gifts since as long as I can remember. My mom told me that I would stand up in my crib as a baby and talk to ghosts, and she,
just low key.
Yeah, my family's
little alien baby.
Literally, my family's Latin, so they accept that, and my grandmother could talk to ghosts too. So my mom was like, "Oh, she's talking to ghosts, whatever." They kind of accepted that. But so as I was growing up as a kid, I mean, you don't see that stuff on TV. You don't see that stuff in mainstream media. And I didn't know where to find more information on it. So now it's so much fun to be on social media and come across other healers and medicine women and see what kind of work they do and hear their journeys and their stories and be inspired by that.
Yeah. That's so exciting. And what you just shared, I'm sure many parents could relate to that as well. I mean, I can make little jokes about it and be playful, but it's also super important that people understand that it's common and it's just happening behind closed doors, like this taboo thing. And like you said, we have to sometimes seek into the deep corners of the esoteric bookstore to find these resources that people have shared, information about that happening. And my hope is that now with podcasts, with social media and so on, it's normal, it's accessible, there's conversations about it, there's groups, communities, and we celebrate it.
Yeah, and so many different types of healing are available as well, which is a great place to start in your journey, because I think some people might be listening to this saying, okay, I have that yearning, I have that craving to explore my spiritual side. I get questions about that on Instagram all the time. I want to start becoming spiritual, but I don't know what that means or how to do it. Right?
Show me the 1, 2, 3 steps.
Yeah. And it's my answer. I sometimes I don't know how to answer that question because it's your path is so unique to you. But I think a great place to start is healing on a, healing through sharing and talking and working through, and also on a somatic level, which brings me back to breath work. It's a great place to start healing for people who have never done any sort of somatic work and know that they have trauma or they find themselves often being triggered in their relationships and they want somewhere to start. I think it's a really good place for people to start.
Yeah, and that could be some of the reasons that you come into it. You could also be seeking to boost your performance, your creativity. You could be interested in meditation, but find that your mind is very active. And one of the benefits as well of breath work, with the Awaken daily practice that we share, you do the 5 minutes of breath work and it will shift your brain waves from that beta brainwave analytical state where you're like, I've got to do the groceries and then I've got to do this and then this and blah, blah, said that. And it will start to slow down your brain waves to go more into alpha. And then you can go also into theta. And what that will do is get you out of that buzzing, thinking mind, which so many people struggle with in meditation. And from there, after you do your breath work, you just stay seated, keep your eyes closed and do your meditation. And you'll find it's like a shortcut into a deeper meditation. You still got to do the work.
Of course. Yeah.
But it helps.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I love that your Awaken practice, you have that 5-minute practice because it's such a perfect amount of time commitment for people who are maybe skeptical, they have busy lives, they want to incorporate it, but they don't know where to start. I think a 5-minute practice is a great place to start.
It is. Everyone has 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I think too, for some people, if they think, oh, does it really work? I mean, seeing how, for people who don't know, your partner Lucas coaches Jake Paul with his breath work as well, and he's been killing it with his fighting. And yeah, I know he's a hard worker and he trains like a maniac, but like, I'm like, what does he have that these other people don't have? They don't have a breathwork coach like Lucas, and I just feel like that's such a testament for like how much more that can add to somebody who's like training for something or like working towards a really big goal.
Yeah. And I will say from a behind the scenes perspective, because I also do support Jake, and he really believes in the practice and he takes it seriously.
Yeah.
And so for him, it's not just some fluffy feel-good thing. It's an essential part of his routine.
Yeah.
And so when he goes into his inner work, to prime himself, to get his subconscious aligned with his conscious desires. Because just a side note here, we can say that we want something, but if the body and the subconscious subtle level conversation is, I'm afraid of that. If I get it, what will happen? Blah, 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 blah. There's like a conflicting belief going on there. We can sabotage our results.
Yeah.
So when Jake goes into the practice, he is fully focused and committed on getting into alignment. And so he goes all the way. Like he does go hard. And it's the same with all of our clients. They take it very seriously and they recognize the benefit that it provides. A big part of that too is as you become more successful, for a lot of people, there is more pressure. And I think this is a conversation that could be had more because I see it every day in my work with people who are crushing it, you know, in different areas. The pressure creates so much stress, and there needs to be tools to manage that overwhelm and stress and to discharge all of that energy. Like if you imagine growing, you get it, you and I get it because we've got businesses, but as you start growing teams and having people who are relying on you, and then you've got a whole audience of people who are projecting all kinds of thoughts, opinions, suggestions at you, it's a lot of clutter, a lot of stuff going on. And all of that energy can start to fritz a person's system. And this is why so many entrepreneurs burn out. So the practice is amazing for that.
Yeah, I found that my different healing tools and my spiritual path have been such a vital part of my journey as an entrepreneur. It's been such a supporting piece. My morning practice, breathing, meditating, journaling, all of that is so fundamental to what I've been able to build over the past couple of years. So I can only imagine people who are, you know, A-list celebrities, like in the amount of pressure and work that they have to do, that how much it could benefit them.
Right. And it's, I mean, I know you're big on this topic, manifestation. It's a supercharger of anything that you want to manifest. The ideas that I get when I'm doing my breathwork practice are priceless.
Yep.
Life-changing. I have heard so many clients be like, I just got $1 million idea. I'm like, well, that is amazing. And I'm so excited for you. And the ripple effects of that, it's humbling to witness. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, where can everybody find, if they want to find your Awaken breathwork practice or your intuitive impact, if you want to share a little bit more about that, where people can go and learn more?
Yeah. Okay. So we have a virtual studio. So Awaken Breathwork Virtual Studio is an online membership where anyone can join and get a 7-day free trial and do classes with us. So we do guided breathwork classes in there on all different themes, from reducing stress to connecting to your creativity, having conversations with spirit guides, all kinds of things are up in there, healing and so on. We have virtual events as well. So every quarter, we're leading 4-hour workshops online so anyone around the world can access them. And this is where the deep work happens, like what we do with people like Jake and other private clients. This is the work that you and I have done together, is the deep dive.
Yeah.
So every quarter is actually, I think, a great frequency to do that level of work, to create your own healing. And some people will probably be wondering if it's safe to do that kind of thing on your own or if it's for any level. And we've designed these experiences so that anybody can experience breathwork from home and they're life-changing. And then I also have my mastermind. So my mastermind's called Intuitive Impact, and that's where I mentor women who are interested in leading a more guided life. And they want to serve, but they want to do it from soul, from that really deep place of truth. So I help them do that.
Amazing. And do you want to share your socials so that they can find you? And
yeah, so you can find us at awaken.com. It's Owaken, awaken.com, or on Instagram, Awaken Breathwork, or mine, which is Helle_Weston. It's Helle with an E.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being a guest.
I love you. Thank you for having me.
This conversation was amazing. And it's the type of conversation that I wish my 20-year-old self could have heard, to feel encouraged to tap into my gifts more, and also to utilize different tools of healing from trauma and pain so that I could become even more stronger and more connected to my intuition. So thank you again for sharing your magic. And
it is a joy. And I'm so happy to activate anybody who's listening and is receptive to the message.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure that you share this episode if you loved it, if it spoke to you, if it made you excited. I really appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Until next time, sending you so much love and light.